SUVs make up 50% of the new car market in Australia. They're exceedingly popular. But if you're after a fully electric vehicle, you're looking at MG's ZS EV, or you've got to step up to the Hyundai Kona, or even further to Audi's e-tron, Mercedes' EQC, or the Jaguar I-Pace, which can sell north of $150,000. Well, Kia has brought the Niro EV to Australia finally, and based on the Hyundai Kona platform with a 64 kilowatt hour battery and 150 kilowatts, we're going to see today how it drives. Welcome to EV Brief. Now, the Niro received a bit of a nip and tuck last year, and it comes to Australia in the facelifted guise. You get the blue trim around the front and the back of the vehicle denoting the electric model. You've got LEDs down the bottom of the grille here, as well as projector headlights up the top. What would have been the grille is actually closed in with this textured plastic, and some people might think it looks a little dinky, but I don't mind it. Not being based on a dedicated electric vehicle architecture, this is based on a petrol vehicle platform. So conventionally, it has a similar body to other Kias in the range, which means this hood, where there is a little bit of wasted space, which we will go into in a minute. The Niro EV is slightly bigger in every regard than the Kona on which it's based, thanks to the 100mm longer wheelbase. Now, this Niro EV is finished in snow white pearl paint. It's quite a nice colour in the sun. You've got these chrome elements on the side, the door handles and around the windows, and then you've got silver detailing on the roof rails. Now, as is customary for a number of soft roaders, the black plastic makes a showing here, denoting its off-road abilities. This Niro EV Sport is shod in Michelin Primacy 3 EV tyres. Now, they have quite a low rolling resistance and they're very quiet on the road. These are fitted with 17-inch alloys as standard across the Niro range. Moving round to the back, cool LED tail lights. Three-dimensional effect, nice kind of patterns through here. Unfortunately, other lights around the car are actually halogen, things like the number plate bulbs and interior lighting that we'll come to in a second. There's a small-ish rear window, but that's alleviated by the reversing camera. Nice black detailing too, this black roof spoiler here which comes out quite a way, and then you've got the more gloss black plastic down here amongst the reflectors. You've also got more blue trim elements in here and also the blue electric badge there. Comfort is good, though ride is a little firm in the Niro EV, if I'm honest. It's riding on Michelin Primacy 3 EV tyres, which are really good for noise suppression and comfort, but I feel like the suspension and the dampers are just a little bit firm over city bumps. Something that has tended to be true for a number of EVs, including the Nissan Leaf and Hyundai Kona. I wonder what's going on there, but I think for the demographic of buyer that would be looking at this vehicle, they'd perhaps be looking for something that is a little bit more supple. You are treated to this customary low-speed spaceship whine that's familiar from all Hyundai Group products, but that's there to alert pedestrians that the EV is coming. So let's talk specs of the Niro EV. We're looking at 150 kilowatts and 395 newton meters of torque. That is shared with the Hyundai Kona, as is the 64 kilowatt hour battery with 356 volts. The Niro EV has a curb weight of around 1,750 kilos, giving it a performance of 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, or 62 miles an hour, in 7.8 seconds, which is actually hot hatch quick and not bad for something this size. The steering is a bit devoid of feel, but it gets the job done. 10.6 meter turning circle, that's similar, it's on par with the Kona EV, but it's a bit larger than, say, Volkswagen's ID.4, which has a 10.2 meter turning circle. It's also 2.56 turns lock to lock for the steering, so pretty standard for an EV this size, and you won't have any huge issues maneuvering it around town or around the suburbs. Ride is good. Over these smoother city streets, I think the weight of the battery helps the vehicle control its movement and pitch quite well. You don't really get too much undulating kind of movement as you do get in some other EVs. That said, the ride is a little firm. Luckily, comfort is high. Noise suppression is really good in the cabin. Visibility is excellent, and it's generally a really nice place to be. Regenerative braking is controlled via the paddles on the steering wheel like other Hyundai Group products. You've got the left paddle for more regeneration, the right paddle for less regeneration. So if you're someone who's not familiar with the technology or prefers that coasting effect, you can turn it off, which is great. For me, I prefer to actually be utilising the drivetrain to slow down the vehicle and saving that energy. The maximum regen setting is quite forceful. However, I couldn't find a setting to actually bring it to a stop. The car, you still have to actually apply the brakes to stop the vehicle. And another slightly annoying thing is that the auto hold function has to be applied every time you switch on the car. Now, the default regenerative setting for each drive mode you're in, Eco, Normal or Sport, can be configured within the user interface, which is great. So if you want to be driving in Sport mode and not have the regeneration set to the highest by default, you can do that. And similarly, if you're in Eco mode, you don't have to necessarily have maximum regeneration on automatically. Now, regarding energy consumption, from the 64 kilowatt hour battery, the Niro EV and the Hyundai Kona have always been known for excellent range. And look, I think we're getting around 400 kilometers easily from 100% battery charge. We haven't had a chance to do a full range test with this vehicle, but we'll have another Niro EV back in the garage soon and we'll be able to do one with that vehicle. But we've been able to achieve 156 watt hours per 100 kilometers across the 6 days that we've had the car so far, which is pretty good consumption for a vehicle this size. And in terms of the specifications, we're looking at a 0 to 80% charge in about 54 minutes on 100 kilowatt DC charging, or around 15 hours, I believe, on an AC 7 kilowatt charger. Now, it's conveniently raining at the moment, so we can test the wet weather handling. And when you put your foot down, you do get a little bit of wheel spin, unfortunately, but it recovers, the traction control kicks in, and it does continue to inspire confidence after that point. There isn't a huge amount of weight over the front axle, so also the 395 Newton meters going through the front wheels means that you can get just a little bit of understeer as the car fights to put weight down over that axle as you corner. But it's nothing that's too troubling. You've got your adaptive cruise control on the steering wheel here, quite easy to use. Although you do have to switch it on every time you wish to use it, which is a bit annoying. You just hit the mode button and then you can set it at the speed that you wish by pressing the down button here, and then you can increase the set speed or decrease the set speed. It's pretty good at maintaining the distance to the car in front. You can control that distance by using this little button here between 4 car lengths to 1 car length, depending on how comfortable you are being close to vehicles in front. Now, the gauge cluster is a little bit cluttered for my liking. You've got a large range display on the left hand side, which is quite nice, but then there's also a sort of dial style display of the range, which is pretty unnecessary. You also have a gear selection display down the bottom. I mean, it's pretty obvious that I'm in drive at the moment because I'm moving forward, so why do I need to see that on the dash? You also have your configurable display in the middle, and then you've got your odometer, outside temperature and regeneration amount there. So that's a bit about the Kia Niro EV on the road, but how's the interior space for passengers and what do you actually get with the car? The front of the Niro is a nice place to be for the driver. The driver's seat is electronically controlled, the passenger seat is manually controlled. It could go a little bit lower in my books, but it's not as high as some other SUVs. There's a really good driving position, adjustable wheel for height and reach, and probably not the thinnest steering wheel I've seen, but also not the thickest. It just seems to be a nice balance in terms of 3-spoke wheels, and it's got these little thumb indentations too, which are good. Material quality up the front is nice here with this fake leather on the doors, softish materials around here, and nice metallicized plastic trim, but it still feels nice to the touch. There's a few hard plastics around here, but everything is really well put together. Everything feels very solid. Real credit to Kia on the build quality of some of these cars. There are a few niggly little bits and pieces that I'm not happy with. You've got these little flaps here for power, which feel very flimsy. And you've got this little shelf here, which is not really quite deep enough for a larger mobile phone like an iPhone Plus or a Pixel XL. Now the EV has this unique floating center console here. You've got a large circular drive controller, and then you've got things like your handbrake, your drive mode controllers, and access to parking sensors. There's also cup holders under this little drawer in here, 2 of them, and they have a flexible little external holder that springs out, but is puzzlingly a little bit too big for most coffee cups, so it's designed really for large takeaway cups. In front of the drive controller little platform, you've got a large sort of rubberized storage compartment down here, which is pretty handy for a wallet or keys or something like that. The dashboard and screen cluster receives a refresh for the 2021 model year, and the Sport version, which we're in, the top of the line, has the 10-inch touchscreen with a nice matte finish. The Hyundai Motor Group does some really good infotainment. Now this comes with wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but the entry-level S version, while it only has a smaller 8-inch screen, it actually has a wireless CarPlay and Auto function, which is a little bit strange. You've got hard buttons for your main menus down below and hard buttons for your climate control, which is nice. Things are relatively simple and straightforward, and things fall nicely to the touch. Everything is slightly higher up, which is something I prefer. Everything is within this kind of quadrant. You're not having to reach down and low for buttons, save for things like the autonomous safety systems on the right-hand side and some of the power buttons. You've got a number of steering wheel controls as well. Obviously your cruise control and radar distance are available here. There's a few driver configurable menus such as lighting and door locking and things like that. And then your phone and volume controls also on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. Now for a Korean or Japanese car, it's interesting that they've chosen to put the indicator stalk on the left-hand side, but that may have something to do with the fact that the Niro EV's main market is in Europe. Now the Niro EV Sport comes with an electrochromatic rear view mirror. The S just has a standard manual one. Disappointingly, there aren't LED downlights in here, but rather just these simple halogen ones. But there is a sunglass holder up the top here. Nicely carpeted too. There's a good sized glove box and plenty of door storage and console storage in here. Seats are pretty supportive and comfortable. Now rear seat space and amenities are pretty good. Like most EVs, you do sit a little bit higher due to the batteries under the floor, and there's a moderate hump here, but easily someone could fit in the middle seat for a short journey. It's also perfectly fine for 3 children. Now sitting behind myself at 5'10", heaps of knee room, though limited toe room. The electric driver's seat mechanism seems to take up a little bit of space here for rear seat passengers. There's no net on the back of the driver's seat, though there is on the back of the passenger seat, which is a little bit puzzling. The material quality is pretty good in here. There's nice silver finished plastic controls and door locks. There's this black gloss trim everywhere, which while looks nice, is probably prone to fingerprints and scratches. And then you've got this deviated contrasting stitching on all the materials. And look, the softer door handles are certainly a nice touch. Other materials are pretty soft as well. The seats, while not leather, they're really good material, and I'd advocate for an animal-free option anyway. And headroom, finally, is very good for someone of my height, and I reckon a 6-footer would be pretty comfortable in here too. Coming around to the back of the Niro EV, you've got a very useful 450 litres of boot space and about 1500 litres with the seats folded down, though there is a little bit of a hump there, so you're not going to get a completely flat floor. Plastic quality is pretty good. It's a little bit scratchy around here, but it's durable and I think it will wear well. Really good weather sealing, twin struts on the rear tailgate, and then on the side here you've got the subwoofer mounted for the sound system, and then there's a little under floor storage area here for EV charging cables and your can of goop tyre repair kit. I prefer to not have to touch the paintwork when I'm closing the boot, and one of the most annoying things I've found on this car, which to be fair there aren't many, is this rear trunk closer, and there's actually nowhere to grip. It angles upwards, so you can't actually get your fingers in there, and it's very hard to pull down, forcing you to actually touch the back of the car. Now the Niro EV is based on a petrol engine platform. It's not a dedicated electric vehicle architecture, and what that means is that they haven't been able to utilise the front area as best they could. So basically there is still a large hole here where the petrol or diesel engine would have been. You can see the motor is mounted quite low here in the body. So it's time to sum this one up. The Niro EV has decent performance and would genuinely surprise a first-time EV driver. Range and efficiency are excellent and, more important, accurate. And finally, the Niro EV is a spacious car with good front and rear seat legroom and headroom. Top gripes with the car are more due to macro influences, but still a consideration for buyers. The high entry price will turn off all but the most dedicated buyers or Kia fans, and this vehicle is nearing the end of its life, though no less competent for that fact. Also, the ride around town is just a bit too firm for a family SUV. For Kia Australia, this was always going to be a bridging vehicle, a teaser in a way of what's to come with its electric future offerings. The EV6 will be here next year, and that's based on a dedicated electric architecture and offers increased range, comfort, space and performance. Kia Australia only expects to sell perhaps 100 to 200 of these Niros, and that's a real shame for what is an excellent vehicle. The Niro EV is actually a very popular model in Asia and Europe, and through a combination of lack of government incentives in Australia, probably Kia Australia's bargaining power with its Korean headquarters, and consumer interest in EVs in this country, the Niro won't be considered or won't be able to be considered by a number of Australians, and that's a real shame. Thanks so much for watching this review and for all the new subscribers to the channel over the last month. Please make sure you do subscribe if you haven't already and drop a like down below to ensure we can bring you even more new car reviews. And please hit up the comments section. We'd love to know just what you think of the Niro EV.